We have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. I'm a little behind schedule, I apologize. So, at this point, I'd like to call to order the monthly meeting of the Hannaford Regional Technical School District for Wednesday, October 10th, 2018. We'll lead off with introduction of board members. Suzanne, would you like to lead us?
Addison Central Supervisory District Board Representative.
Lorraine Morris, also from Addison Central School District.
Nick Wilson, also from Addison Central School District.
Christina Macklin, Addison Northwest School District Board Representative.
Gibson Smith, Business Manager.
Linda Barrett, Clerk.
Dana Peterson, Interim Director and Superintendent.
Jason LaRock, Workforce Investment Board.
Melissa Beckwith, Workforce Investment Board.
Mark Farron, Workforce Investment Board.
Glenn Schmidt, Adult and Cooperative Education.
Kim Farner from New Haven, the Mount Abraham School Board District Community at Large.
Kelly Mills, Assistant Director, Dean of Students and Sustainable Agriculture Instructor.
All right. Next would be to approve our agenda. I'd like to add one item. Under informational, what do you think? Or,
Yeah.
okay. So I'd like to add one item in the informational, just an update from the board chair nominating committee, which Lorraine will speak to. Are there any other changes to the agenda that we need to be aware of? Anyone have anything that they feel was left off? All right. Hearing none, I take a motion to accept the draft agenda. It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. We now have a board agenda. Visitor comments. Jake, floor is all yours.
In reading the draft minutes from last week, in the public comments section, I saw a question about the board's progress with identifying a more permanent superintendent. I didn't see anything else mentioned in the minutes, so I'm just following up with that line of topic and questions.
Yeah, that is an ongoing conversation. We will be continuing that conversation tonight in executive session with I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, our intent is to be able to provide clarity to this in the next month or so.
Sure. Thank you.
Gretchen?
No, I'm just waiting for the bills,
Oh, okay.
because they're not done.
Way to out us. Way to out us.
Well, if they were done yesterday, they'd probably be done. I don't know if they
All
came from
right. Next item would be correspondence. Dana, do you have any correspondence?
I do not.
Okay, I do. This is a letter from the Addison County Educators Association, the Patricia A. Hannaford Career Center Education Support Personnel Unit. It's addressed to me. Dear Mr. LaRock, in accordance with Article 3.1 of the 2017-2019 Collective Bargaining Agreement, the Patricia A. Hannaford Career Center Education Support Personnel Unit is writing to inform you of its intent to negotiate a successor agreement. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to schedule our first negotiation session. We look forward to working with you. Sincerely, negotiations team, which is Alan, Pulsver and Don Gemma. So that was received on September 25th, and I believe our negotiating committee is going to negotiate both contracts. Is that a fair statement, or do we need to establish a?
No.
Okay, perfect.
We're glad for
Awesome, that's what I love to hear. Moving on to our consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes for September 19th, 2018, and the monthly accounts payable for the end of September.
We need to pull the minutes.
we need to pull the minutes, and so would you like to give us the numbers?
Sure, I do that right now.
Yeah, if you would be so kind.
Sure. And so Mike has yet to review these, so for October 10th, 2018, building and equipment reserve is $6,521.80. The general fund is $94,478.50, and the revolving fund is $3,943.65.
And I hear that we need to pull the meeting minutes. I think we should pull the accounts payable just to have a brief discussion around the BRF number.
Okay.
And since it'll be a conditional approval, because we've only had one board member review it, so. So we'll take up the meeting minutes for September. So we've essentially canceled the consent agenda. We'll take them up individually. Meeting minutes for September 19th. I believe we have a change.
Yes, under those present, I'm missing 3 administrators. Gibson, Kelly, and Len were all here, but somehow did not get the names on there.
Okay.
Also, my name is on there and I wasn't.
Okay. And then on the facilities report, there's a change there in the last sentence. It should read that the old white van was traded in towards a new blue van, not 2 new vans.
And we came out of executive session at, I want to say it was 7:30, and took no action. Other than to adjourn. All right, do we have a motion to approve the revised meeting minutes for?
There's a typo also on page 4. Okay. Sorry. I was sorry about that. It's on the monthly accounts action agenda, policy 2.4.
Random E. Get you every time. All right.
No.
I'll move that we approve the minutes September 19th as amended.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay,
And 1 abstention.
1 abstention. Meeting minutes are approved. Monthly accounts payable. So we do have we have 2 anomalies that we probably need to make everyone aware of. Last month, everyone looked at an updated BRF schedule, building and equipment reserve. It appears that we've discovered recently that the retainage on our sidewalk project was never paid out. So we had been holding a percentage of the payment. That's, we're at the end of the warranty period. So that they're looking to get paid for that. So we had closed that out of the BRF fund, but because we thought that project was closed out, but that had gotten missed. So that number is
$521.80.
So that was in what Missy reported to you, but I just wanted to give a little clarification because that is actually coming out of the BRF fund, and that was not on the fund that you saw the other day, but it was previously approved. So, and that being said, unless there's any other questions, I take a motion to approve the monthly accounts payable.
Pending Mike's review.
Pending Mike's review. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. All right, we're right on schedule now, Dana. Policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities.
So, in looking over the policy for financial conditions and activities, we noted that after it went out to print, that there were a couple of typos. So Gibson is distributing a new one, and I will call your attention to those changes. One is in number 6, the other is in number 7. So while Gibson is going over that, I'll be happy to say a few words about the rest of the report. To date, we've spent $603,000, approximately 17% of the annual budget. We have also a general fund balance of $60,000 with a line of credit of $100,000. As of September 30th, the Borough has a cash balance of, had a cash balance of $71,629. I think that needs to be updated based on the action that was just taken, Jason. So we'll have an updated report for the next facilities committee meeting. And there have been no interfund transfers completed during this period. And now, if you will, that will take us down to number 6. There was an error in the response. The largest tax payment made to the district is federal withholdings under number 6, which is made every 2 weeks through our internal payroll system. No other payments or filings are overdue or inaccurate. If you flip the page, number 7, talking about single purchases, a commitment of over $5,000 in the Building and Equipment Reserve Fund. We have listed here the 2 that have occurred since, that have happened in the quarter ending September 30th. One was in August for the purchase of the van that we talked about last time as part of the BRF update. And another was the hot water heater that was purchased also in August for $6,263. That was also included in the BRF, but that had not, that was only under the encumbered. So, to let you know, acquired acquisition and disposal of real property. We have acquired the 3 new Xerox copiers, which was also in my report from last week. And we have sold the following items, which I also indicated in my board report for last week. John Deere tractor, Kubota lawnmower, 4-wheel drive tractor, the Alice Chalmers, a chainsaw, and then some staging. And we do not have any outstanding receivables.
Excellent. Any questions? Any questions for Dana on his monitoring report for 2.3? So the equipment that we sold.
Correct.
That went to other schools, got sold within the community?
I don't think anything went to the schools. We posted it appropriately. And they had an opportunity. I think it was all community interest in the items that we had for sale. So they've expressed their pleasure in knowing that we have things that we can advertise and make available to the community once we've gone through our disbursement process. So.
Excellent. Any questions for Dana? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept monitoring report for policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the monitoring report for policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. And the motion is carried. Policy has been approved. Next item, policy 2.5, emergency superintendent succession. This is a monitoring report, and it should be there's a copy of it in your board packet. I'm going to turn it over to Dana.
So as I have to do annually, report to you on what procedures are in place should there be a need to immediately replace my position. And the approach that we've taken since I began last year was I meet with Kelly and Len weekly, and we share information regarding the operations of the center, and they are up to speed on most of the operations for the center going forward, and either could be charged with carrying on if an emergency arose. We have a focus this year on working on grant management, and so Len is the adult ed coordinator, the business office, and Patrice Alexander and myself are meeting monthly to review all of our grants, making sure that they are addressed appropriately, and that is a significant source of our funding. So that is one area that we've paid attention to, and we'll be doing so moving forward. The other areas, we're looking at paying attention to our proficiency development. We're looking at communications, and we're looking at the collaborative work on safety teams so that everybody is sufficiently aware of what is going on to maintain the health and safety of the center as well as financial operations. The primary responsibility usually goes to the assistant director. That would be Kelly. The one thing that I've highlighted for you in this report is that Kelly has taken on responsibilities as a sustainable ag teacher, and if a need arose for her to step into the position of superintendent, that we would need to cover her teaching responsibilities. We have a number of people on our sub list that would be quite capable of doing so. One on the sub list is a former instructor, so we think that that would be certainly helpful. And we have a leadership team that meets every 2 weeks and is quite competent in their oversight of the roles and responsibilities within the center. So I am quite confident that if there were an emergency need for covering the superintendent's roles, that we could do that with confidence.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions for Dana in regards to his report?
Move to accept policy 2.5, emergency superintendent succession.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? So I'm presuming that all parties listed in the report are okay with those taking on those responsibilities?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
Like I said, it was fine.
Just checking. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Lorraine for the chair nomination committee report. Or should I turn it over to Mark? Who's chairing that?
Well, I sent out the emails.
Take lead, I'll follow you. I'll fill in the
I
gaps.
kind of volunteered to originally, but then I.
Yeah, you did.
We have had surprisingly few takers on the coveted position of board chair. We do have one person who has graciously offered, Suzanne is interested in that role. However, and people have, in the meantime, decided they might be interested. It's not too late. Otherwise, at the next meeting, I would suggest we go ahead and make that change if you're ready to do that.
Yeah, I am, and to me, it really comes down to the desire of whoever takes this position. Once again, like I said, I'm willing to stay on through the end of through the annual meeting. However, that would mean that the chair is the new chair would be operating a board under a budget collective bargaining agreement that they didn't, see through. So it's 100% up to the nominating committee and that individual how they'd like to handle it, so.
Yeah, I see, we had talked about it and see no reason why we shouldn't move ahead. It's nice to have Jason still on the board for the next chair to transition in. I think it's a good time of year for it to happen.
Excellent.
And I know quite often what's happened in my past, having served on boards, you have more than one person that it kind of throws their hats into the ring, and there's an opportunity for the folks that want to be chair to speak about how they might want to lead the board and what's important to them in regards to the board. And I hope, Suzanne, next month you could bring that to us, even though there may not be another person to hear from. And and I guess the only thing that I would be looking for in a person is the commitment to stay with policy governance and maybe even do some training with this board for policy governance, because we've had a lot of turnover since we adopted policy governance, and it's always really good for a board to be on the same page and understand what it is. So that would be the only thing that I would put out as a fellow board member that I would want to see followed through on, outside of the responsibilities that come directly with being a chair.
Excellent. Any questions?
I think, Mark, you answered it, but, so we're not going to take any action tonight, but we will the next meeting, and whoever has put their hat in the ring should come prepared with a statement to present to the members of the board, and then we'll have a vote based on that.
Yep.
And if anyone else is interested in running, they should contact Lorraine or you.
Correct.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you for spearheading that. Since we're taking no action, next item would be the superintendent's report. So there's a
There's a proxy certificate.
Oh, I got,
Thing on there.
see, obviously it's time for me to go.
Last year, I believe you authorized me to serve as the proxy for the VHI board meeting that happens on Friday, the 19th, before at the annual Vermont Joint Vermont Superintendents and School Boards Association.
So there's actually two annual meetings that take place
right.
that for VHI and
We have two votes.
Visbit.
Yeah. So the question is, and I think there's a form I forgot to bring up with me, I apologize, but you need a vote to appoint a proxy. I will be attending the meeting. If there's a board member that wants to go, that's certainly fine. I can help register them. But
are there any board members that are planning on going to the annual meeting?
I can't.
Okay.
And I think it will require the chair's signature on the proxy statement, but if you want to make a motion to appoint me, I would be happy to serve in that capacity.
So
Yeah.
I take a motion to,
I'd make that motion.
and authorizing the chair to sign the proxy form.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion is carried. And so do you have that paperwork downstairs
I got
after
it
the meeting?
someplace. So, yeah.
I'll swing in.
That's swing in.
I'll swing in Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
Sign it.
Yeah.
When is that meeting? That's not until
It's next Friday.
Next Friday?
Yeah, 19th.
19th, okay. Now we're ready for the superintendent's report.
Great, thanks. Oh, one thing that I should, I'm going to hand out, if you take one, board members, an updated list of board members and contact information. This was requested recently, so feel free to take one. And we will update that periodically as roles and positions change. So, it was brought to our attention.
Thank you. Because I want to say mine, the one I have is probably 4 or 5 years old.
So we're glad you picked up on that. Another thing I'm going to hand out, another addendum. I sent it out electronically, but if you didn't have a chance to see it. I'm going to hand out the enrollments that we have that was supposed to be part of my report. Unfortunately, it took us a little longer in the guidance office to get the full report taken care of than I had anticipated, so I will speak to this a little bit after I do the rest of the report. That will give you a minute to look over any of the numbers that you have in there. So once again, you have my report, but I just want to highlight a couple of the key things. Our open house was a pretty big success this year. We had over 130 people show up, not including those who were supposed to be here. And that was a fivefold increase over last year's September open house. So changing the date and making it much more, advertising it much better, I think resulted in a significant increase. So I want to extend my gratitude to Wendy Pratt and Kate LaRiviere, who took on the spearheading of our event. So they did an excellent job of helping to coordinate that. And I want to put in a plug for all of our instructors who were very energetic and engaged in the open house. And a special kudos go to Doug Atwood, who had the most, from what I heard on the rubric, got a 4 on performance for having the students actually engaged in doing a variety of interactive projects with the participants who came to open house. So thank you to everybody who made that a real success.
It's really not fair. He had a Tesla coil.
Well, there were other demonstrations that were being done with compressed air that the students were doing on their own while Doug was picking up his grandchild. So the students were actually running for a certain portion of the time the open house, and they did a fantastic job because I was in there listening to what they had to say. So kudos all around. But yeah, the Tesla coil, and I did put it on the front page if anybody's interested of the report. Second thing, our Makery, and this has been spoken about in other reports as well, but our Makery grand opening, we're targeting for November 1st, Thursday, November 1st, from 5 to 9, to have people from the community. You have our mission and vision statement for that outreach in the report as well. Excited that we have our first technical intern from the Foundation for Innovation grant with Middlebury College, working in our diesel power technology program. And I have to put in a plug for the new, oh, we already talked about this, did we not? You mentioned Osmo? Our September 21st? No, you didn't, we couldn't have, because we met on the 19th. Okay, so the on September 21st, Kelly and I met with our administrative colleagues in our sending schools. That was included Bill Lawson from Middlebury, Justin Bouvier from Mount Abe, and Stephanie Taylor from Virgins. And we had the first meeting of the groups in quite a few years, from what I understand. The meeting was well received. Some of the topics included equitable access to PAHCC programs, coordination on early release days, student support services and communications, as well as regularly monthly meeting schedules. And so the next meeting will be held at Middlebury on the 12th, that's this Friday. Then we have a November 9th meeting in Virgins. The December meeting will be at Mount Abe, and then we'll be back at the Career Center in January. So we are very excited to be having these coordination meetings. And Kelly, if you want to say a word about that, feel free.
You covered it.
Thank you.
So are your early release days synced up around the county? Okay.
Yep, we have some coordination to do in terms of timing and a few other things, but that's one of the things that we'll be working on. But yes, countywide, everybody has the same early release days. And we'll be coordinating. One of the goals at that meeting was to coordinate both at the building level and at the superintendent's level. And I've been charged to talk to my colleagues at the other level to make sure that everybody is well informed of what's happening for recommendations. Proficiency learning, we were up at Mount Abe, meeting with Gabe Hamilton, who had done some proficiency work with us as professional development 3 years ago? Before my arrival?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay. And we were talking about aligning our proficiency work with a partner, and Gabe was extremely helpful, generous in his time, meeting with me, Hayden Thompson, Brenda Logie, and Wendy Pratt, going over how our proficiency rollout compares to what Mount Abe has been doing for the last couple of years. And we are very pleased to have a partner that is so enthusiastic to share their experiences and listen to us. We'll be meeting again sometime in November. I think it might be November 9th. But we're really excited that this work is happening collaboratively with our partners, with our sending school partners. And finally, I put in some excerpts from a letter that I sent out to our families. And if you have a student in the Career Center, you will have already seen this. But on the last page, you have some excerpts talking about how we break down the proficiencies into 3 categories, with an emphasis on level 3 proficient being the target. At this point, we're letting people know that it's not unusual to be performing at a level 2, but there'll be other opportunities. And 4 is considered an extension of the proficiency work, and that is something that we're looking to students to be able to see how they take and extend their learning beyond what is considered proficient. So we are working on a conversion chart for our partners that do not grade on a proficiency scale. And one of the things that we did know is in coordinating with Gabe at Mount Abe, is that they will accept our proficiency grades. We're close enough in sync that they won't have to do any translation. So we just have to give Mount Abe our scores in proficiency format. We are looking to do a pilot with other things that we can do to make sure that we are closer in sync, but we're very excited about that. And we are working on a conversion chart to share with our other partners about what the conversion on a proficiency scale might look like, and give them some guidance about how they would translate that for their home schools. Once again, we're considering proficient to be the highest level of achievement that we're looking for, and if you were to make that equivalent on a conversion chart, that would be approximating what students experience as an A in a traditional grading system. We know that can be exceeded, but at this point in time, we're looking at a 4 as being something going well beyond what proficient is. So just sharing that communication with you.
All right, excellent.
And the final thing then is the handout that I would have had in my report if we could have coordinated ourselves a little earlier. This gives an overview of all of our programs. It gives you on the far right-hand side the number of FTEs per program. Just before that, you have your student totals. If you look down at the bottom of the first table over on the right, you'll see 2 numbers that are important. I would ask you to highlight 349, that is the total number of students that we are serving this year. And 135.75 is the FTE equivalent. I have a couple of notes up there, and there is a note about a 0.5 adult student that would need to be deducted from there. Students in middle school, if you look at the pre-tech agriculture in Virgins, there's a small student count, but we are serving middle school students through that program in both semesters. It just so happens that the ag focus is in first semester and STEM is focused in second semester, so that the numbers that you have for the Virgins will probably switch to be more in line. So if you see a number of 67 and 14, that will be somewhat reversed as the instructor takes on a more of a middle school profile for giving them exposure. Our total at 135.75 will be adjusted a little bit downwards, sadly to say. There are a couple of notifications that we got today that there's one student that has moved, and another fractional FTE needs to be adjusted. Just for clarification purposes, if you look at forestry and natural resources, I have a note to the right that says 1 full-time student. That's why the total students and the FTE is slightly off, because we have 1 full-time student who is counted as more than just a half. The FTEs are usually half if it's a half-day program. So that's why that number, it's not a mathematical error, it's an artifact of the number of students in the program.
What is our current 6th semester average, not including this?
I haven't calculated the current 6th semester.
No, not including this. Well,
last year it was 127.
127 was our current.
Yeah, it was the rate.
Right.
So this year, and I mentioned this to the staff recently at a faculty meeting, is probably going to drop by approximately 3, simply because the number that we have pulled in is approximately 17 below the highest number that will be going off.
Okay.
So we had 152, and if you take 18 and divide by 6, you will get 3. So we will have a 6th semester. This is just a preliminary ballpark. Will be 3 fewer than last year. So that 127 is likely to be a 124.
Okay.
But those are all preliminary numbers. I'm still working on the backup support to be able to report back to you in November on that. The other thing that I want you to know, that we did break it down by pre-tech and technical students, and you can see it's also done by high school, which is something that Jason, you had requested a while ago. But so you can see that for Gens, we have 32 technical students and 85 pre-tech. At Mount Abe, we have 61 technical students and 2 pre-tech. MUHS, we have 85 technical students and 64 pre-tech. Otter Valley is sending us 3 technical students. We have 1 adult student, and then we have in the other category, that's mostly homeschool students. At least that's what Denise told me. I think they're all exclusively homeschooled. We have 6 technical students, and we have 9 pre-tech students, and that is a huge increase over what we usually do. We usually only have a handful, 3 or 4, so we've multiplied that by 4 or 5.
What do you attribute that to?
We did a lot of outreach, direct outreach to middle school students. We actually coordinated with AOE to make sure that they could get mailings about the availability of our program. And so we gave them the information, and that was sent out last spring. So we're going to continue to do that. We actually had a meeting talking about that recently. And when we have our open house, we try to make sure that people who are connected with the homeschool community disseminate that information for us, because they're very well connected. So
when a homeschool student comes here, it's the sending high school that pays the non-state portion for that homeschooled student. Is that correct?
It's the town, I believe, that gets billed.
It's the town itself gets billed?
Also, is that correct, Gibson?
I thought they combined all the towns into one solid high school.
The high school only pays for those who are, I think,
in the school itself.
Enrolled in the school. Yep.
So where does that show up for the town? Does it show up in their elementary? No, would it show up in the?
There's a
where does that show up?
I don't know how.
That gets billed directly to towns. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean
So it must show up in the town budget?
Last year. We had some follow-up billings last year, and they
Yep.
posted to the towns.
So now the only question that I don't know, honestly, Mark, thinking about your question, is to whether there is any type of an assessment that the host homeschool would have. I don't know. This is something that's not on my radar screen. I'll inquire and report back to you next month if you like.
Interesting.
Because I don't know why they would be billed. I mean, my experience with homeschooled students is they get billed, the bill goes directly to the town for access
I
to
would
those
assume
programs.
it's the same for adults without a diploma.
Right. They get directly billed. I know the answer to that question. They get directly, the town gets directly billed because they're not affiliated with any high school. And that's what happened last year. I do remember that case. So adults without a diploma who are accessing the Career Technical Center those are billed directly to their town.
And adults with a diploma are
Paid individual
they're
tuition.
paying tuition.
They are billed directly.
So I'm gonna ask a question I don't expect you to have the answer to.
Okay.
If you do, that's awesome. So with an increase in homeschooled students that are coming here, is there any data of what percentage of homeschool students, access career and technical in general in the state or even, countrywide?
I will look into that.
Is it a small percentage or is it is it larger?
We have not, now year plus time that I have been attending meetings with Career and Technical Center directors, I don't remember the homeschooled conversation coming up.
Well, and that's why I bring it up, because I don't recall having the homeschool conversation here either. So I'm not saying that we haven't had homeschooled students here.
No, we haven't.
Just it wasn't ever presented, so I wasn't.
Well, school students are allowed to take up one course or maybe it's 2 courses a year through their home high school, so they could sign up through their high schools and to take the course here.
Okay.
And they might be counted, say, as that high school.
So that's why I can't answer the question about that. That's why I have to look that up. However, the rule around homeschooling, we have a lot of homeschool students access our programs previously in my previous district, and the rule is 40% of core. So you can take as many, and it's actually up to 40%, core being defined by certain programs. The statute allows them to access technical education directly, I think.
All right.
So, but if you're going to a middle school, you can take math, science, social studies, language, and you can access other things that are outside of core. And maybe this is outside of core.
Yeah, that's like you were saying.
Driver's ed, they should do that way too.
Yeah, that's on a space available basis, but often that's really tough because they're at the bottom of the list. At least depending on whatever the policy is for homeschool access to. Usually a priority is given to students enrolled in the school first, but yes, they can, just like any program. So I will write those 2 questions down, ask us how the funding is taken care of,
Yeah.
and then ask about data for participation.
Yeah, well, that's just my curiosity more so than anything. Any other questions for Dana? Nick?
Yeah, just a dumb one. Visual communications is only offered to Middlebury students, I guess.
No. Nope. We have 2 non-Middlebury students taking
Oh,
this.
yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
But the other high schools don't.
No, that's not true. I don't think that's true.
Well, this is showing.
There's nobody from the other schools.
So is that?
We have 2 non-Middlebury students taking VisCom.
But you don't have any listed from Mount Aber, Virgin, so I guess the question is.
Oh, maybe they're both other, maybe they're,
The
okay.
challenge is that visual communications has been typically offered for 80 minutes, so there's the issue with
Coordination time.
transportation
Yep.
with that. We're working on that to move forward. That's part of our collaborative meetings with the other schools.
So currently, if someone was looking to do a similar program, does Virgins and Mount Abe offer a comparable program?
No.
Okay. Just-
Okay.
I don't know that there are any applications from those schools.
Okay.
So,
We did say that we could accommodate them.
right.
It is a very popular class. at
Yeah, it's
Middlebury.
very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could that also be said with the computer science and programming, since those are all all Middlebury students? Is that a function of it being new?
It's the first year.
Okay.
There was 2 non-Ave students enrolled. One dropped before the season started, and the other just recently dropped. There's special circumstances around it. But all 3 schools exhibited a lot of interest in computer science. It's the first year. It'll make it.
Are you happy with it so far?
Very.
Excellent.
And they're very happy.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Any other questions? All right, so I'm looking at the gender makeup of these classes. And I only bring that up because that has been a focus on the STEM equity, gender equity pipeline. Are we still working on that? You know, are there initiatives that we have in place to balance this out?
So at the start of the school year, we spent a full day doing equity training, and we did spend time talking about gender equity. We have a couple of plans that we have developed over the course of the last year, plus a plan that was developed previously that we're looking at to see how we can implement that and make a difference in attracting non-traditional candidates. That's also part of our Perkins plan. And so we clearly understand that the gender balance in some programs could benefit from additional special targeting so that those programs could increase their participation. So we are working on that.
Oh, I'm glad to see there's one girl or one female in the computer course for the first year. That's great. That's awesome. And in terms of attracting more girls, the comment I've heard is they want to stay with their friends as opposed to coming over here. And I don't know how to answer that question.
So
Well, and I also want to clarify my initial statement. I wasn't necessarily just speaking about, you know, the females, you know, versus male average, but you know, there's programs that are, you know, tend to be heavy one way or the other. We have, you know, classes, you know, here that are, you know, some that are all female. I don't see any that are all male, and one that's all male. But, you know, it's still, you know, that non-traditional, you know, unfortunately, you probably could look at this and go down the list and say, okay, this is gonna be, you know, this balance, you know, this way or this way, but.
We did we meaning a couple of us, did an analysis at the end of last year on looking at programs, and it was pretty clear that some of our programs follow stereotypical gender lines. We are, just to let you know, in my board report, I happened to mention who the person was in our diesel power technology. That is a female Middlebury student, and she is interested in helping to address that. She had to do a lot to be able to break away and come over to the Career Center, even as a college student. So she would be happy to talk about what it takes to be able to do that and follow your passion and your dreams. And so we're already planning for ways that she can communicate that, either through you know, a printed message about her story that we could disseminate, or as well as joining us on visits to schools to talk about non-traditional roles, because this woman is pretty interesting. She works on fishing boats in Alaska, her home state, during the summer. So that's one thing that we can also harness. We're also looking at branching out to the middle schools this year and bringing people in to get a an overview of some of the programs and perhaps find somebody that could be a mentor. This young woman would be great in the diesel program.
And she would be a good person to take into the middle school as well,
Right.
as well as maybe some of the other females who are in the
Right.
heavily
Dominated.
dominated
Yep, fields.
gender-wise.
And we have a few students that are not taking classes currently that are expecting to return in the spring. So we're just glad that most of our programs have at least some gender representation, non-traditional gender representation. And we're working on trying to do better.
Well, I'd like to point out that agriculture is traditionally a male-dominated career field, and for the last 14 years, there have been more young women in our ag programs than there have been young men. So, and that's a trend that's nationwide in terms of women going into that area, so.
So can I just throw this out, just because, in this gender discussion, that maybe we should consider a gender-neutral category column as well, based on all
Right,
the
I was
things
just
that
thinking
are
the same
going
thing.
on.
Some kids
And-
identify differently, so.
Yeah.
This is a state report. We have to report according to state requirements, so the report that you get. We are sensitive to that,
Just wanted to throw it.
and we don't insist that somebody be identified differently.
Great.
Our bathrooms are basically unisex.
Good.
And I'll tell you the same thing I used to tell Lynn, just because the state says you gotta report it to them a certain way, doesn't mean you have to report it to us a certain
Yeah,
way.
that's a good point.
So, but,
So,
yeah, either way.
I will be happy to review that. One was timeliness. The report was just made available for me to review today, and I had said that we would have an update. Thank you, Nick, for reaching out. I responded and gave you the report like hot off the press. But opportunity to report to the board, I will be happy to include that if we understand how people would like, if they would like to select a different category. But I will be happy to present it that way.
Great.
We are not, at this point in time, we know that there are people who may be gender non-conforming,
Yeah.
but they haven't indicated a third non-described gender, as far as I know. We are aware of people's gender preferences and how they are recorded in our database. I think that that's fair to say. Is that right, Kelly?
Which speaks to policy, whatever, treatment of students, so.
Yeah, treatment of students.
Excellent.
We try to treat them very
So,
respectfully.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
would this be a good time to mention the robotics? Is the robotics program and how that fits in, whether that's,
We're
as outreach?
partnering. Yeah, it's outreach. We can do that. We're partnering with the Isley Library to offer an after-school robotics program. They are taking care of the volunteers, and they also have some space, but they're more limited. So they've asked if we would be able to support the program here, and I absolutely said yes. Another one is we're looking at extending our STEAM Girls offerings. Again, we're working on some of the details with them as well, to bring students here in the afternoon. Yeah, that will be, I think, 1 day a week and maybe a second day in the works for robotics happening here for middle school students. There is some interest among elementary school students. Not exactly sure where it is. I'm letting the library figure out those details. I'm providing space and a sponsorship from the Career Center as part of our marketing that we would sponsor the robotics program and allow them to have access to our space, our computers, and any software that they might need. So we want to be as supportive as possible in those initiatives that are CTE related.
Excellent.
Can I just add an aside? So my third grade son does robotics and he loves it, and he would love to come to the Hannaford Center
Okay.
with robotics. So that might be
Great.
a curriculum you will want to look into. I'm sure it'll dovetail nicely with the computer, and all of the other ones too, but.
So Jake's thinking, great, there's a third class I got her.
But he's already talking about.
That's great.
That's awesome.
And as we go through with this, as we go through the process of partnering with folks and providing opportunities for young people to experience the Career Center, I will keep you posted. Sometimes things happen even faster than I can write them down.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Let's move on to, unless anyone has any other questions, let's move on to the Dean of Students report. Hearing no other questions, I'll turn it over to Ms. Mills. There's a copy in your board packet that was emailed to you. So.
Okay, so one of the highlights I wanted to draw our attention to is the fact that we have a amazing group of professionals on staff who have begun work on completing our NEAS self-study and pulling all the reports together. And I'd like to recognize Wendy Pratt, who's our math coach, Kate Lariviere, our literacy coach, Mike Adaman, who's our special needs coordinator, along with instructional assistants Amanda Payne and Elisa Rittendale, to help pull this together, because we're looking at the April 2019 timeframe for the visiting team to be here and we have to have those reports mailed out to them ahead of time so that they have time to review them and they can make summaries and, have their essential questions ready when they get here. So that's important. The next thing is that we've been working with, continued work with Jump Rope. One of their tech support individuals, Haley Candler, was on a video conference with us for our first early release day to help answer questions, because we were quickly approaching our mid-quarter time for sending out interims. So some of our staff members had some questions about, inputting the data, what that was going to look like, how to weight different assignments, and some other things. But at the same point, Hayden Thompson has been our feet on the ground person here, helping the teachers if they have questions, and also being, a workshop leader. He's offered a couple of different workshops, either during planning time or after school, for those who need help. And everyone's invited to drop in, so it creates a nice collaborative environment so that we can learn from each other. And Hayden's a really good teacher. So then the other thing is that we participated in Day of Caring, and the instructors contacted the United Way of Addison County directly. We're connected to different community service opportunities. So that was, again, a wonderful day, and our culinary arts students prepared the lunches for everyone, bag lunches for our students and staff that were going out. And as always, Alan Pulsifer and John Curler, our maintenance personnel, worked really hard with getting us all the tools that we needed, depending on the work sites, as well as all the transportation that was needing to happen. And let's see, the other thing was we also have a neat promotional opportunity with Rough Cut Barbecue downtown. One of our former ag students, Sarah Guyard, is one of the co-owners, and she has purchased 3 of our 4 hogs that were out at North Campus, and she's going to have her chefs prepare the meals. Our students are going to be involved with marketing of the event. It's going to be on November 7th. It's a Wednesday night from 5 to 8, and they're going to feature our animals on their specials menu and highlight our agriculture students. And we're also hoping that we're going to promote the Career Center as a whole that night. So if you want to come out and help celebrate what our students are doing and to help promote our center as a whole, we'd love to have you stop in at Rough Cut and join us for a fun evening. We're going to have some raffle items. So one of the things that some of the things we're going to do is Devin Karpak, who's been our farm manager, has volunteered to work with some of the sustainable ag students in creating hooks out of horseshoes. So he's going to work with them on some fabrication so that they can have an opportunity to learn some new metalworking skills and, highlight that also that evening. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
That's out of the box. Nice. Nice, that's great.
Purple Palooza.
Now I have an excuse to go for barbecue. Nice. That makes me happy. Any questions for Kelly? Kelly, would you like to highlight some of the things the students did on the Days of Caring?
Yes.
Not all of them, but just,
Not all of them?
just if you want to, go for it, but, just.
One of the groups that stood out to me was that there was some gleaning opportunities. So some of our students went out and harvested apples that were going to be used at the food shelf, so that they were going to be either, given to people as apples, or they're going to be made into other products so that people can access those through the food shelf. So that was kind of a neat thing. And then there was some pretty heavy-duty labor things that happened in terms of, building projects and painting and
Is
that sort of
this
thing.
the Lego?
We wish.
Oh, that's right. They're meeting down in your room?
I don't know anything about it. It's not that funny.
Sorry to hear that. So where else? Or are we wrapped up with that?
Salisbury School,
Okay.
the Tam Trail.
Diesel
Some-
students went to Rugby Museum. They had an old barn foundation that was in the pucker brush, and they wanted it cleared out so that they could get more of a view of the foundation. And the students found a whole other foundation that they didn't know about.
Oh,
That's cool.
neat. Excellent. Any other questions for Kelly? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. Len, next would be the Adult Tech Ed Report. It's all you. There's a copy of it in your board packet.
So I realized, looking at the report before the meeting, that we had a bump in the road with our LNA program that I think flew under the radar because it happened between July and September when I don't write reports. But we had an LNA class that started with 6 students beginning of July, and we received notice beginning of August that the Vermont Board of Nursing was changing the testing vendor that they use for assessing our students, and that was going to become effective the 1st of September, which was the week before our students were going to test. So we started a class preparing them for a test that was not the test that was going to be used. We extended our class for a couple of weeks in order to give the instructor time to do some research on what the new test would look like. Part of that process involved the new vendor. The old vendor had a minimum of 5 students to test, but if you had 4, you could buy an extra voucher and have an empty seat. It just drove your testing fees up. The new vendor will not allow that and has a 6-student minimum. We have an 8-student maximum for clinical supervision with 1 instructor. So we now have this really narrow window to hit between 8 and 6 in order for us to test locally. So we made the decision not to test that summer class locally. We have been an approved testing site in the past under Pearson View, and we decided with American Red Cross that we would have them test at a regional testing site. Part of the reason for that was we knew we were starting with 6 students. If we ended up at the end of the class with any of the 6 not really prepared to test, there would be this pressure on them to test anyways so that everybody could test locally. So we made the decision not to test locally. Long story short, we finished. We had, of the 6 who started, 5 finished, 4 scheduled to test at a regional test site, either in Burlington or in Rutland. And we just got our results back last week that 100% of them passed. So we're still trying to figure out what's going to be best in terms of testing for our students. We can apply to be a regional test site at any point in the future, but for right now, it's looking like we made the right choice in not testing locally for this.
Is not testing locally, do you see that as a deterrent to?
You know, with any kind of, high-stakes performance testing, anxiety is as much a factor as what you know. And certainly our students are a whole lot more comfortable testing in their own classroom. So we saw it as being a big downside to have to test someplace regionally. But it really seems like we don't have a lot of option for the time being. If we,
That's too bad.
We'll keep assessing that.
Is there a cost associated with becoming a test site?
I don't believe there is. There's some other complicating factors, like if you become a test site and other people want to send you students, you have to accommodate them, and that can be, that can put more stress on our students, kind of thing. But we're still adjusting and figuring it out. Another change in the format is the Pearson View used to a lot of it is practical demonstration on a patient, and Pearson View had students randomly assigned to care, so that they would test with somebody in their cohort, but they didn't get to choose who. American Red Cross is now requiring that you test with an actor that you take with you. So somebody who's not associated with the program at all, but is known to you. So we're still kind of assessing the changes. And unfortunately, it may just be 2 years before they change the vendor again, because this is going to be the third change in my 4 years.
Interesting. Oh, yeah.
Who's responsible for overseeing this whole thing?
The Vermont Board of Nursing.
Vermont Board of Nursing. And they're aware of these situations, obviously?
I think so. I think that certainly we've made them aware of the challenge that we've run into when they've made changes.
So is this, if it's a problem for us, I'm presuming it's a problem for the other career technical centers that are offering a nursing program.
I was surprised our LNA program administrator is a former Castleton nursing instructor and lives in Rutland. So one of her first steps when we got this news was to look at what Stafford has been doing, and apparently for 10 years or more, Stafford has their students have had to test out of site, out of house. They haven't done local testing in Stafford for over a decade, so we may be late in giving up the local option.
All right. Any other questions for Len? Thank you very much. Next item, before we go into executive session, is policy 4.1, governing style. Do we have a volunteer to speak to governing style? Don't make me do it. Mark?
Why don't you do it?
That would be, that'd be the student grading himself, right?
The grading board?
Grading board, yeah.
Meeting started a little late, but that was okay. Stayed pretty much on task. Good questions, good attentive crowd. Great information from those who presented reports and agenda items. I've had no complaints with the way this meeting ran whatsoever. Nice job.
Thank you. right, at this point, I'll take a motion to go into executive session. We have 2 executive sessions. We need to have a personnel conversation and we need to talk negotiations. So it's moved. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, so we'll be going to executive session. So if you could stick around for negotiations, and then, and I guess for the board for personnel.
Actually, we don't need them for negotiations.
Dana, no, we don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're free to go.
All right. I actually had a week like this, so
Take it outside.
I'm happy to be released.
So you have to show the camera.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
I've struggled with this for the last couple of years once I saw something pop up. So it's like, not knowing even what the fund is, all what's
Is it still like an ALE license? Did you just put in
No, I
like
did not. No, but
daycare situation?
that's what scares me. Because I hear people.
Is it, it's a license or not?
I don't know what they